I'd like to welcome you to the NLP training that we're doing here live, and we're taping for a home study course in it. So we're going to be doing a lot of different things, obviously, over the next few days. And the most important thing about NLP is to remember that it's experiential in nature. That we can talk about it, you can read about it, somebody can try to explain it to you, but it's experiential in nature. You need to do it to really understand how it works. It's kind of like a story. Reminds me of a story. And the story is of Napoleon. And at the height of the Napoleonic Wars, Napoleon was separated from his troops in Moscow. And he kind of got lost, and he didn't know what to do, and he was hiding, because if he got caught, he'd get killed, because he just basically raped and pillaged Mother Russia. So he was like looking for a place to hide. So he sees a little shop, said furrier shop. So he said, well, it's worth a shot. So he ran in and he sees the furrier, and he looks the furrier right in the eye. And there's something about making eye contact that adds a lot of power to a situation. And he tells the furrier that, I'm Napoleon. I'm the most powerful man you'll ever meet. I can do things for you that you can't even imagine. But I need your help. And so the furrier has to think about it for a moment. Because, if he helps Napoleon and the Russians come in and catch him, he'll get killed. But if he doesn't help Napoleon and the French come back, he'll get killed. So it's one of those, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, but you got to make a decision right now given the information at hand. And there's something about the person being right in front of you asking for help. So he tells Napoleon, hide under these furs. Napoleon gets down, he covers himself with furs, and the furrier throws some more furs on top of him. And it's pretty cool. And about that time you hear the Cossacks coming in. You hear their boots. They're kicking indoors because they're looking for Napoleon. And they come in the fur shop and they're looking around. They ask the furrier, is Napoleon here? Have you seen him? He starts sweating, because he doesn't know what's going to happen. And they start taking their bayonets, put them on the rifles. They're stabbing into the piles of fur. Little furrier's sweating, gets really nervous, gets to the pile where Napoleon is, and he's stabbing and he's stabbing. Napoleon's just sweating, and he's under there sweating, and the furrier's freaking out and doesn't know what to happen. But about that time, you hear the cannon fire on the outskirts of town, right? So naturally, the Cossacks have to go fight a battle. There's other pressing needs, there's hierarchy of needs, I guess. So they just run out to go fight the battle. So the furrier's like awestruck, doesn't know what to do. He's like waiting because he thinks maybe Napoleon's dead. And a few minutes later, Napoleon comes crawling out from under the furrier. He dusts himself off, does his Napoleon thing. And about that time, the French generals come back in because they overrun the city very quickly. And they come up to Napoleon and they're brushing him off and everything, making sure he's okay, because if the emperor gets killed on your watch, it's not good for your career. So, he's like that, and the furrier is just overcome with curiosity. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. We're just really curious, and you're just like, oh! And so he runs up to Napoleon and goes, what was it like to be so close to death? Napoleon looks at him for a moment and goes, how dare you speak to me this way, you peasant? I'm Napoleon. I'm the emperor of Europe. Tells his generals, take this man outside and execute him. In fact, I'll give the order myself. So they take the furrier out. He's crying, begging for forgiveness, doesn't know what faux pas he committed. They take him out, they blindfold him, they tie him to the pole. You hear the troops begin to assemble. He's like, freaking out. So pretty soon you hear Napoleon come out and go, ready! You hear, aim! You can almost hear the guns being aimed. Then there's a long pause. There's little footsteps. And it's Napoleon. He rips the blindfold off and goes, now you know. You can spend all day talking about an experience, but it's not the experience. And one of the things about NLP is it's about clear communication. It's about getting good communication, because you're only as good as the communication that you're set up. And if you don't have good communication, things get lost. And things get lost in translation. Right? People can explain something to you all day long, and it's not the experience. Plus, experience is personal. Everybody in the room likes to do hypnosis, been hypnotized, been around hypnosis. Try to explain it. It's a hard thing to explain, because you could explain one thing and then the person may experience something totally different, right? And so, it's one of those interesting things, Plus, if you ever talk to somebody about hypnosis, a lot of times they've seen the show on TV. And we all know how true TV is.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah, even the news. But I always think of Hogan's Heroes. Do you really think being in a Nazi prison camp was like that? That your hair was always perfect, like that one guy's, and everybody was clean shaven and well fed, But it's not quite like that. But whatever you've done in your life, the experience is much different than trying to talk about it. So what we want to do is gather that information that begins to get lost. And NLP is also about retraining your brain and helping people become the best that they can be at whatever it is. It's about a lot of different things. It's kind of a meta-discipline, if you will. Because what it is it breaks down a lot of things. Hypnosis, Gestalt therapy, it has several different components to it, and kind of puts it in. And I use the analogy, it's not a toolbox. People say, oh, it's a tool. I use the analogy that it's the toolbox. It's not a tool that you put in a box. This is the box that carry all your other tools in my opinion. Whether that's hypnosis or you're doing psychotherapy or Reiki, massage, whatever else you do fits nicely into this little box I call NLP that you take around with you, because it's about the relationships that you build and what you do with those and how you handle it. But as we get started, we're going to be doing a lot over the next few days. And let me hand out the manuals. When we do these techniques, they'll be fast and furious, kind of. So they'll come at you a lot. And I'd like you to just stay open to several things as we get going. First of all, I'm always reminded of a quote that you have powers you've never dreamed of. You can do things you never thought you could do. There are no limitations in what you can do or what you can achieve, except the limitations of your own mind. And we see that all the time. That's what people are drawn into this field, I think, is to open it up and begin to experience things on a different level. As we get going, we're going to do a lot, and feel free to ask a lot of questions, because that helps me teach better and it helps you do better. But the very first thing that we do when we're beginning to learn NLP is we have to open up our senses. Because you're only as good as the information you bring in. Now, if you don't bring in good information, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, if your senses are closed, it doesn't help you gather information. And most of us have had that wonderful experience somewhere in our past where you talk to a parent who doesn't listen. All their senses are shut down. They don't see what you're saying. They don't hear it. They don't feel it. They've made the decision before the communication starts. Correct? And whether that's parents or business people or whatever, most of us have had that experience. So what we want to do is open up our senses, because the more information you bring in, the better communication you can do with people, the better you can influence them, the better that you can do whatever it is you need to do. I like to think that NLP is about one thing, and that's getting people to do what you want, have them think it was their idea. If you really get good at this, you can sway people. Can you get people to do things they really don't want to do? No. But if you've ever watched Jerry Springer, there's not a lot people will not do. Right? People are pretty weird sometimes, or pretty flexible, or if they want things, they'll do some things. So, but if they're coming to you, especially in some kind of help situation, or they have asked for help, whether it's in a professional situation or just somebody talking to you, to me that's implied consent that you can help them get there. Right? But you can get people to do some pretty amazing things if you get warmed up and fun with it. But what I thought I'd start with is something a little different. I'm just going to do a little interaction with someone, just to do like a little NLP, I don't want to say intervention, but it'll be like a little complete piece of NLP is what I would call it. And so we're going to start at the beginning, and you can just watch from beginning to end, and then we'll go from there. So, but first, I'd like people to think about several things. I'd like you to take out a piece of paper, and if you're at home watching this on tape, what I'd like you to do is take a few moments and write down the things I'm going to ask you to do next. Number one is I'd like you to write down the sentence, 3 things I want to accomplish. 3 things I want to accomplish. Or goals, if you will. 3 things I want to accomplish. Or would like to change, however you want to phrase it in your head. And then a little bit below that, write down the word personally. 3 personal goals you'd like to accomplish. And you don't have to do them right now. We're going to fill this in later. 3 professional goals you'd like to accomplish. 3 spiritual type goals, spiritual, emotional development goals. 3 physical goals. One of my personal missions is to try to get people to reconnect to their bodies. And I think that's one of our problems, even especially in the helping fields. You're so busy helping other people, you're not in touch with yourself. But 3 physical goals. Most of us want to do something physically. Lose weight, get in shape, make a change, do something. That'd be good. And then maybe if you have 3 financial goals you'd like to accomplish. And you can throw other things in there. But over the next, during the day today and then tonight, those at home do this during the day, write these goals down in these areas. So when we're doing a technique, I'd like you to pick some real goals to work on, rather than just theory. There's going to be times in the class that we're going to have to just role play, as they would say, because it may not be, there may not be a problem we can actually work on, so we can role play. But for a lot of things in our lives, it's a lot more powerful if you actually experience a shift. If you actually make a major breakthrough in the next few days, or even a minor one, it doesn't just sell you on the technology, it usually makes you a zealot. Right? And that's what I'm going for. I like people to become zealots. An NLP jihad, if you will. It's politically incorrect, but, NLP Akbar. Anyway, that'll get me flack. But it's true, because I always say, like in clinics, people that become very good hypnotists usually got into the field because they did something. They stopped smoking, they lost weight, they did something like that, and then they wanted to learn about it, and then they kind of got hooked on it, And my one office Ed's lost about 60 pounds or something like that, works out and quit. Well, he quit smoking years ago with hypnosis. Then he started losing weight, learned it. Now he's into it. Cheryl lost weight with hypnosis, and she does a lot with children. She does an awful lot with children. She's pediatric hypnosis, but it makes you much more of because you believe in the technology. It takes it out of the realm of theory and makes it, much like our experience, it's actually happened. So I want you to fill that out over the next, during the day, because really starting tomorrow is when we really get into the techniques. Today we're going to lay the groundwork. And what I'd like to start with is a little bit of an overview before I do this little technique, which is, and this is my kind of theory of how, what we'll be working with, right? There's a lot of theories of the mind and how the mind works. And you can use whichever one you want. I like this theory. I call it the iceberg theory, right? It's how your mind works. Cold and bleak. No. It's mostly, we come up with these statistics like, only 10% of your mind is conscious. A lot of us heard that, or 5%, or some percentage. Where they come up with this, I have no idea, right? Because if you only use 10%, or people actually say, you only use 10% of your mind. Wow, that's kind of weird. Because the laws of physiology state that if you do not use something in your body, it atrophies, correct? We got a personal trainer here. That's what muscles atrophy. Your brain will atrophy. That's what Alzheimer's and some of the mental diseases do. So if you didn't use all of your mind or your brain would be 90% smaller. Or you'd be in Congress, right? in this country. But most of our mind is subconscious. And that part I understand. One of the last huge developments in a physiological sense in the human being was we developed the bicameral mind. And we are of 2 minds. You can do 2 things at once. One of the few creatures that we know of that can actually do several. We can multitask. You can drive, talk on the phone. You can too much, but you can multitask. You can make a lot of your behavior subconscious. You don't have to think about it, right? And that's very powerful because it frees you up to do other things. That's great. That's fabulous. That's what makes us jump ahead in all kinds of things in our lives. The bad part is you learn a behavior, it becomes subconscious, it's hard to change it because it is subconscious. Whether that behavior is smoking or overeating or a stress reaction, alcohol, drugs, whatever it could be, if it's a subconscious reaction, you can try to change it consciously, but then the moment you relax, the old behavior comes up because it's a subconscious thing. And what always pops into my mind is if you ever drive a car, if you ever drove a stick shift, and you really got used to driving a stick shift, then you get in an automatic, your hands down here, right? You're looking for it, you know? Or you slam it up into, you know, people do all kinds of, because you're not, and that usually happens when you're relaxed. So, or you're driving an automatic, you get in a stick and you forget to shift. What's that? Why? Oh, that's the transmission going out. But consciously, in this little model that I like to use, and this just helps me when I'm working with clients, is consciously you only do a few things, right? Consciously, it's the part of your mind that's, you know, it's analytical, right? It's rational. It's where your willpower is, okay? And it's where your short-term memory lies. And analytical means it analyzes data. You just analyze data and make a decision, right? It's the analytical part of your mind. And it depends, when you're highly conscious, when you're in your fully conscious state, you're much more analytical than when you're relaxed, right? But it's the analytical part of your mind. The rational part of your mind does not mean human beings are rational, because we are not. My evidence for that? Think of your friends. Are they rational? Don't they do crazy? Oh, I had to do that. They did that, right? Okay, you're looking, but you're not emotionally involved. So you're like, that's crazy. But to them, it makes total sense, and we all do that. The best example in the world: talk to a smoker. Well, whatever, right? They'll come up with great reasons, great rationalizations why they smoke, why they can't change. Part of it's fed by the tobacco industry. I think it's the tobacco industry that convinced people that it's hard to quit smoking. In fact, there was a commercial, and I think they put us hypnotists in jail for putting a commercial on like this, like, we know it's hard to quit. Most people never stop smoking. I'm like, these got some great embedded commands in this thing. I don't know who wrote it, but they're good. You know, it's like you can't breathe. I mean, it shows people sweating and freaking out. I'm like, oh, that's great. Yeah, you know? It's called job security for the guys, you know. But that's your rational part of your mind. It rationalizes your behavior to the world and to yourself, right? Because a lot of times people really change when they break that rationalization and they realize, this is crazy. And if they really believe that, people make a lot of change. You see smokers do it all the time when they finally realize that crap's killing them. That's why you see people stop smoking in their late 30s and early 40s. It's the first time they maybe try to do something and they can't breathe. You know, do they need a hypnotist or something to help them stop? Maybe, maybe not. But they break through that. And sometimes that's what we do, is we can help break through that rationalization. Right? It's your short-term memory. It's the part of you that can, you know, that just it's short-term. And we could go into all these mental laws. Miller had 7 plus or minus 2 and all this other stuff. But it's short-term memory. It's like if you've ever been at work or you've been doing something and somebody gives you a phone number. So you're walking around repeating the number, and then somebody stops and asks you another question. And the number falls out of the back of your head. Well, that's your short-term memory. It doesn't work very well for it's short-term. That's why it's short-term memory. Right? And lastly is willpower. Right? Willpower. Vastly overrated, but really misunderstood. People tell you they have no willpower. That's fascinating. Everybody has willpower. Willpower is only meant for a very short-term period. You know, it's like push away from the plate. That's it. That's all willpower will do. It won't keep you away from the plate. Walk by the bar instead of walk in. That's it. It won't last a long time. Right? But willpower only works well when you're consciously engaged. When all your faculties are there and you're thinking about whatever it is that you're doing. Willpower is fabulous. But it's not real good for long-term change because several things physically remove willpower from your body. Right? Number one is when you're tired. When you're physically tired, you don't have much willpower, You just don't. You're tired. You can't think well. You know, it's why when there's an airplane crash, one of the first questions they find out is how long has the pilot been awake? Not how long has they been flying, how long has he been awake? Because the FAA has all these strict rules about they can't be in the cockpit on a commercial airliner, I think, if they've been awake over 16 hours. Because they're making mistakes, right? So when you're tired, when you're hungry, you have no willpower. Diets work well till you get hungry. Everybody's diet does good about noon on Monday, right? Because when you get hungry, your blood sugar drops. When your blood sugar drops, it actually changes the neurochemical structure of your brain. You know, your adrenaline drops, your insulin changes, and you know, you ever get a little testy when you're hungry? Slap them, you know, and they tell you it'll be a moment. No, I want it my way, and I want it now. Whatever. But when you're hungry, it changes your physiology, and you have no willpower, right? So when you're tired, when you're hungry, when you're angry, you have no willpower. You will do stupid things when you're mad, right? Correct? Everybody will agree with that? Because again, it actually changes your blood chemistry, because once the adrenaline's dumped into your system, it changes your serotonin levels, all these brain changes happen, you lock down, and you can't make very good decisions, right? So those are the big three. When those things happen, you know, it changes your physiology. And in one of the 12, well, in AA and the 12-step programs, they also add lonely. They call it hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. When you're in one of those states, you do not have willpower. You will make stupid mistakes. In an AA or in a 12-step program, you'll relapse. And this is kind of true for everybody, and it makes a lot of sense. You know, and when you're lonely, that leads to depression, which again, not just changes your physiology, it actually changes your brain chemistry. And you'll want to stimulate yourself. So when those things happen, you have no willpower, right? And you will revert back to old behavior, because old behavior is your subconscious mind. This is where your long-term memory is. You do not have to think about your long-term memory. It's there. It's information that you know, and it's right on, like most people, like, what's your address? And unless you've recently moved, it's right there. And all this information, that driving, most of you don't have to think about driving. It's part of your long-term memory, right? But for most of us, this is where we get into the interesting stuff. Your emotions are subconscious. You cannot control your emotions consciously. I do not think so. Right? If you could, you're better than most people. Because you ever worked for an idiot? You know, and you get those emotional responses, and they're hard to control. And then what's interesting, you push them down at work, because you can't vent at work, maybe. Unless you're a union worker or a government worker. You know, so you go home, you kick the dog, you start a fight, you're angry because it's your emotions. They call it displaced emotions in psychology, and it kind of makes sense, and most of us experience that. You may be mad at this area, but you can't express it, so you do it over here. But your emotions are subconscious, right? You can't control them, right? And it's where your habits are, which habits really, some people would argue, are nothing more than long-term memory programs. You know, I think there's some physiological component to a lot of your habits, but you know, in that, it's also where your what we call strategies are. How do you decide things? There's a lot of different things at the subconscious level. Okay, learned behavior. At the deepest part of your subconscious mind is your physical body. You can control it consciously if you try, if you really practice. You know, I've been blessed to go to India several times, and one time I did get to see one of those yoga guys that could actually shut his heart off. For I think you could do it for a couple minutes. You know, some people say you could do it for a long time. Then my analytical mind kicks in and goes, I don't know about this. After about 3 minutes, aren't you brain dead? Yeah. You know, but I mean, he could do it for a couple minutes. I mean, they had him wired up, and you know, you could listen, and you could just shut his heart off. Which goes against what a lot of people would say, but you do it all the time. Same with, like, you know, your digestion, a lot of physical factors you can control consciously. Most people don't take the time or effort to learn how to do that. But what we want to do is get down here. We want to change your emotions, your long-term memory, your habits, things like this. And there's two ways to get down here and change the subconscious mind, right? Hypnosis kind of relaxes a way in from your conscious mind into your subconscious mind. And NLP, a lot of it attacks it from the back. It sneaks in. It's covert. NLP is waking hypnosis or covert hypnosis. All this stuff I read about and then go buy a book or sit through a seminar and go, wow, I know they're teaching NLP, because it's accessing the subconscious part of your mind in a roundabout sort of way. Now it's interesting, the last thing to remind you is that you do have defense mechanisms to protect your subconscious mind. And that's what we need to bypass. And then in NLP we learn some ways to do that, because how you think underneath the surface is part of this. And if you know how to bypass some of these factors, it makes it even easier. With or without your target's permission. I use target as my term for a person I'm talking to. With or without your target's permission, if you know how they're thinking, not what they're thinking, but how, because NLP is not so much about what they're doing, but how they're doing it, it opens up the subconscious mind. So what we want to do is learn with NLP how to get down here and do these changes. Does this make sense to everybody? And like I said, hypnosis, you relax down here, and a lot of your scripts and stuff get down, change your long-term memories, how you think about whatever it is you want to change with somebody, and things like that. So it's just a little model, if you will, and there's no right, there's no wrong, it's just a way of looking at it. So what we want to think about is when we're talking to people, when we're trying to help somebody change, we have our target in front of us. You want to track the fact that you really care about their subconscious mind, not sometimes what they're doing consciously. So, and that's what we'll be learning over the next few days. What I'd like to do to get started is, I was going to do that little intervention thing. So, does somebody have something in their life that they've been working on that they'd like to get a little better at? You got something? No?
We all?
Yeah, well, I need to pick on a... Bring your chair. Bring your chair on up. Bring it right up here. I'm going to get another chair. Got plenty of chairs in this clinic. It'd be easier.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you can use a lot of NLP without, they call it content-free, but we have to kind of know a little bit, if it's okay. So what's one of the things you're working on, that you'd like to change?
I want to eat less sugar.
You want to eat less sugar.
Or
Stop! There, $1,000, thank you very much. Now, that's why I get the big bucks.
soda is actually the thing.
Soda, what kind of soda?
Coke.
Coke? Not Pepsi, Coke.
Not Pepsi, Coke.
Okay. No Pepsi, Coke. Coca-Cola. Her family thanks you. Most of her family works for Coca-Cola. Yeah, or did. So how much do you drink of Coke?
It varies. 1, 2.
Okay. Would your life be better? How would your life be different if you didn't drink Coke?
I'd be healthier. My immune system would be better.
Okay.
Without the sugar.
Not the sugar. Do you know Coke really doesn't have sugar? It has high fructose corn syrup, which is actually much worse than sugar. Because it makes you thirstier. I just found this out a few months ago. It's just fascinating. I'm trying to get the exact date when they went from sugar or cane to high fructose corn syrup. It's also when you could drink more of it. Because I read a thing that physiologically, if you're actually drinking cane sugar, your body it hits a point and it'll say no more. But high fructose corn syrup, it just keeps going and going. It's why you can drink a 44-ounce Big Gulp. And I don't know if this is true or not. I'm trying to find out about it, but I was reading on somebody's website. If I find out, I'll let you know. But you want to get rid of that stuff and the Coca-Cola and all that other stuff. Okay, because they put the real good stuff out of it. They don't have real Coke in it anymore. So and how long have you been drinking Coke?
Since I was a little girl.
Okay. And what does Coke do for you? Drinking Coca-Cola do for you?
Well, I've done some hypnosis, so it goes back to it being a treat.
Oh,
so
it's a
it's
treat.
like
It's a good
yeah,
treat.
exactly. Mm-hmm. exactly.
I've had a tough day.
Right.
I'm going to drink a Coke.
Mhm.
I dealt with fat people all day. I'm going to drink a Coca-Cola. I walk around my clinic all day going, I see fat people. Anyway. And the more I see, the happier I am. And I love my client. Anyway, so okay. And what stops you from stopping? You're an intelligent, articulate, beautiful woman. What stops you from stopping doing this?
I stopped when I go to bed every night.
Yeah, you stop. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I stop. It's, yes, consciously. And I decide, all right, stay away from that.
But there's something inside that hangs on.
Yeah.
And what have you done to try to stop in the past? What?
Hypnosis.
Hypnosis. Okay.
And it's very good for about a month and a half.
But, okay.
Then I start a new habit, I guess. I don't know.
All right.
Start. It's long term.
Okay. And what do you do for fun? What is your hobby? Do you have any hobbies?
I used to.
What do you? Well, when you do, if you did have a hobby, what would it be?
Travel, paint.
Okay. Paint pictures or walls?
Pictures.
Okay. This is how I actually talk to people.
Yeah. Now
Cool.
I hypnotize people.
All right. How long have you been a hypnotist?
3 years.
3 years. Where'd you take your basic?
Jerry Kind.
Oh, Vito. We got all, anyway, so he's the godfather. All right, so that'd be good. So, would you like to be over this?
Yes.
This coke habit that's going on the tape? Oh my God!
I said that once. I need to give up coke.
Yeah, I don't do too much coke. And you had a cold that day, and your lights over. Okay. All right. So the party wants to do this, correct? Most of you really wants to, but party is hanging on to it. Okay. And the party hangs on to it, just doesn't want to change. Okay. Would you be willing to play a little bit?
Sure.
In your head? Why don't you take a deep breath? Close your eyes. And kind of just get centered and grounded. And I'm going to touch your arm. Is that okay? Touch your arm in your hand. Okay, great. What I'd like you to do is think about that part of you that really wants to change. The part of you that wants to give up the Coca-Cola. And just let a shape, an image, a color, a sound, a feeling of this part just pop into your mind. Whatever it is, it is. Could be anything. But it's this part of you that really wants to do this. Great. Now you know all the reasons you want to do this, your health, your vitality, like you said, your immune system, all these conscious reasons you want to make this change. Great. 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 Now I'd like you to just let that part kind of drift. And I'd like you to think about the part of you that for whatever reason or reasons hangs on to that old habit. Even when you give it up for 30, 40, almost 45 days, and then you go back. The part of you that hangs on to it. And just let it take a color, a shape, a sound, a feeling. And again, whatever it is, it is. Now this part's been doing this behavior for a long time. And it really is doing this behavior for some reason. Keep you safe, healthy, happy, secure in some way. So in one way, this part of you and the part of you that wants to change both want something good for you. They both want the best. They're just going about it in a kind of a different format. But I'd like you to take a moment and let this part look at all of those beliefs and behaviors that lead to drinking the Coke. The beliefs, the strategies, the outlooks, the things that lead to the Coca-Cola and drinking it. And really, I like to use the term that we mislearn information. We learn things when we're growing up that may or may not be true, but they kind of get stuck. So I'd like you to let this part look at all of that old belief and then the behavior in a new light. Realizing that maybe like you learned that it was a treat, a goodie, a snack, a reward. But maybe that's true when you were a little kid. But as an adult, you can do what you want, when you want, where you want. Nothing can stop you. But we're not going to take away this part's ability to give yourself a treat, a snack, a reward. We're just going to update its information, kind of like your computer. You know, you wouldn't want to still be running, you know, Windows, whatever. You have to keep upgrading it. And just like a computer, it's a good analogy. When you first upgrade it, there's some bugs in the program that you have to work out, but once it gets good, it's normal. And you just happen to have an old program. So I'd like you to look at it in a new light. And as you do, I'd like you to imagine that younger you when you were little. And spend a few moments with that younger you that was learning this behavior, and give that younger you some love and care and nurturing and support. And let that younger you know now what you wish you would have known then about Coca-Cola. And they didn't know years ago, all the things. And so you can let go of maybe those old learnings about Coca-Cola with no anger and no resentment or anything about the people that taught it. That was then, this is now. Kind of like, let that idea of Coca-Cola go to the same part of your mind as Santa Claus. It was true at one point in life, but it's not true anymore. And the idea of it's still in there, but... And so now, let these two parts begin to negotiate. The part of you that wants to make this change and the part of you that fights it can begin to negotiate. Now, many people notice like a cord of light or energy between because they're both a part of you. And they want you to be safe, healthy, happy, and secure. So they begin to negotiate, and they work out every single detail, consciously and subconsciously, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, for you to make this change. And so they begin to move together now. And as they do, you begin to feel a shifting taking place. And it doesn't have to make sense consciously. But as they begin to blend and merge into one, a new part of you. Notice what this new part looks like, sounds like, and feels like. Cool. And like any new program, it may take a while to really get it fully installed. And that's okay. Because much like the analogy, if you were carrying a tray with glasses of water and one spilled, you wouldn't say, well, that's it, I got to throw them all on the floor now. You just let that one go and keep on toward your goal. So maybe that even means to your subconscious mind an occasional Coca-Cola would be okay. Maybe not. That's for your subconscious mind to figure out. But look at this new part. And now bring this new part inside of you somewhere, somehow. And physically do it with one or both hands. Physically bring it into your body. Wherever it wants to go, so physically bring this new part inside. That's right. Bring it in. That's right. And let it settle into every cell, every fiber, every part of you. And it doesn't have to make sense consciously. Good. Good. And over the next few days, we can continue to work on this because much like a program, you've had computers, worked on them, you put one program in, then you got to have another program and another program. And eventually it's all good, but we have to work out the bugs. Good. So just let all that settle down and look at times and situations in the future where you may notice different behavior. And just think one last thing, since you're in a little seminar out of town, think about a wonderful way to change. When you're away from the old and you make a change and you go back, it can be different. So when you're ready, take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, just let go. I want you to do one last thing. Just imagine a Coca-Cola, either a can or a bottle, wet red with a beautiful whiting, I speak for a living, the can of Coke, okay? And just notice it there. And I want you to think of one other thing. Think of a food you absolutely hate. Some food you absolutely despise. What kind of food would that be?
Liver.
Liver. Now when you think of liver, where is liver at? If I had a grid pattern in front of you here, where would liver be? Up, down, left, right?
Oh, I just put it in front of the can.
Okay, well, that's it.
So in the center.
Okay, so I want you to take that Coca-Cola and put it where liver would be in your mind, and notice the same color and shape and sound and feeling you get from liver being transferred to the Coca-Cola can. Good. When you're ready, take a deep breath. Open your eyes. Come on back. Give her a hand. Good. Oh, here's your chair.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, bring some more chairs in. So that was a little intervention using NLP. Break it down for you over the next few days. Started with rapport, information gathering, and then we did, the technique was kind of a visual squash, which you'll learn, and a little bit of a submodalities transfer. And we'll see how it works over the next few days. All right. But what we get started with is information. To do information gathering, you have to have your senses open. So I like to do sensory acuity exercises. It's on page 9 in your manual. And you're only as good, again, as the information you bring in. So you want to bring in good information. You want to focus on the target that you're talking to, and you want to bring in information. So you want to bring in information through your main senses. And you can only think in a few ways: visually, auditorily, kinesthetically, olfactory, or gustatory. Your brain can only process information through your 5 senses. That's it. That's how you do everything in your head. So you want to open those senses up so you can process information better. So here's some techniques that we can do. I'm going to show you the one we do as a little group, and then I'll show the home study group of another way to open up your senses. So what I'm going to do is have a couple of volunteers come up. You made this chair.
Thank you.
All right.
Somebody else gets one.
Yeah, well, we're going to be moving around here. Have that chair? Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. That's how I get volunteers. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a group of 3, we'll have a group of 4 over there, or we can use the rest of the clinic. We've got plenty of room. So what we're going to do is play with our brains. Is that okay?
Fine.
So this will be the person first that will experience the experience. So what we're going to do is have her close her eyes and think about a time in your life. First sense we'll work on is kinesthetic, sense of touch. So we're going to touch you. Is that okay? We're going to touch your knee first, then your hand. But first we'll start with your knee. So I want you to think of a time in your life where you were in touch with your physical body. Okay? Maybe walking, working out, something where you were in your body. Great. And what we're going to do now is one of them is going to touch on the knee and say your name.
Matt.
Now you touch the same knee and say your name. Tim. Touch. And
Matt.
say your name.
Matt.
Touch. And what you, go ahead, say your name. Tim. And we say, they're going to do that a few more times. I want you to imagine like calibrating to their touch. So you kind of notice their touch. So they'll do it a few more times.
Matt.
Tim.
Matt.
Tim.
Matt.
Tim. Now one of them will touch you and not say it, and you just guess who it is. And there's no right, there's no wrong. This is just an exercise.
Tim.
Okay.
Matt.
Good. Now open your eyes, and we'll get and as you do the exercise, you'll give feedback. So we're going to have you, first you calibrate to like the leg or something covered with cloth. That's the word I was going for. Because sometimes, some people have warm hands, some people have cool hands, some are wet, some are dry. There's no right, there's no wrong. So when you're touching through skin, it takes away temperature and moisture. So the first time, you're going to do it twice, is a group of 3 here and that group of 4. You're going to do it on the leg or the arm, something covered with cloth. And then the next time you'll do it is like on the hand. Okay? In fact, for the group, it's easier. Let's do it as the hand first, and then the leg, or uncovered, covered, and then +2. Notice as you're doing it, it's pretty easy. If one person's going like, Will, George, Will, George, You kind of notice those little things. But, you know, pressure, and reassure yourself this is just an exercise. There's no right, there's no wrong. It's just a way to begin to open up your senses. And the real thing I want you to focus on is when you're in the, and I actually physically want you to switch chairs, so this chair is always the experiencer chair, or in a group of 4, is when you're the experiencer, really focus on your feet, or where you feel the feelings. Like you're, you know, kind of get into your body. Stay focused on your body. And let the experience flow through you. And again, reassure yourself, it doesn't matter if you got 100% right or 100% not quite right. It's just an experience. Got the exercise? Good. So, you got a sense of touch. Kinesthetics, we call it. So the next thing I want to do is auditory, or the sense of sound. Right? Can you snap your fingers? Sure. Close enough for government work. You snap your fingers, you can clap, you can rub your hands together, anything to make a sound as long as both people are doing the same things. So what we're going to do this time is have the experiencer close their eyes and think of a time they were in tune with their hearing. Could have been listening to music, walking in nature, talk, anytime you were really in tune with your hearing. Can you think of a time? And as you do, kind of nod your head. And now they're going to either snap their fingers, whatever they're going to do. What do you want to do?
I'll be a finger snapper.
Okay, so we're both snap fingers. So snap your fingers, say your name.
Tim.
Say your name.
Tim?
Stacy.
Before or after?
That's either
Tim.
one.
Stacy.
Tim.
Stacy.
Now one of them will do it and you just guess.
Tim.
Good.
Stacy.
Sorry. Okay, now, so what we're going to do is do that. Now, obviously, you hear in space. Left, right, up, down. So as you do this, you might want to lean over and do it on the other side. See if you can get the sounds pretty close. And when we do the group, make sure, you know, and clap, rub your hands. As long as both people are doing the same one, just something to make a little sound. And again, kind of get in the same general proximity, because I'll explain in a moment why the proximity of sound is so important. So go ahead and do this. We'll get our group out here. So go and make it